You're listening to the Fan2Fan Podcast, and on this episode, well, this is part 2 of our discussion of indie theaters. That's right, we're talking about independent theaters, art house theaters. Here we go. Welcome to the Fan2Fan Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Bernie Gonzalez. With me today, fellow co-host Pete Charbonneau. And this is part 2 of our conversation about indie theaters. In part 1, we had Allan and Rebecca on to discuss the charm and the impact of indie movie theaters. We dived into what makes indie cinemas unique, their distinctive personalities, the eclectic programming they have, from cult movies to foreign films to horror marathons, and how they even host actors. Pete was able to see Bruce Campbell at a screening of one of his movies at an indie theater. We talked about how some of these indie theaters have their Art Deco like film palaces, like old school movie theaters that look amazing and have amazing architecture. And some of them are just in mini malls, and they just found a spot that made sense for them. And they're just a magnet for the audiences, the theater goers that really want that communal theater going experience. So that was part 1. Part 2, we're going to keep that conversation going because, again, we love indie movie theaters. We love going to the theaters, and we want to talk about them. This one, we're going to talk about people that are behind these indie theaters, the owners, all the moviegoers, all these unforgettable gems that are across the United States. So yeah, let's get into it.
Centrally located as a beacon for downtown Cary's revitalization, the Cary Theater is your art house for entertainment that's beyond ordinary. Presenting independent film, locally produced film, live music and comedy, engaging talks, and more. You will find it all at the Cary Theater on Chatham Street in downtown Cary.
You go to a big theater, now you pick up your seat, you're sitting in basically a lazy boy. You're able to do all these funky things to it like you would in your living room because you're trying to recreate the living room comfort, the convenience, the coziness of it all, versus many indie theaters that I've been to that have harken to old school days, smaller seats, slightly uncomfortable, a little hard, no cushions, and maybe it's a little bit of a mismatched seating situation where they've got some chairs that have fake leather that's just like completely peeling off, and it just looks like it was an office chair, but you don't care. That's part of the fun is that, film and cinema, you go in there and there is every type of seating that you can imagine. And I think that's part of it. You're not going there for the frills or the lounge seating or the 4K. You're not going for that. You're going there for what it is. And I think that's part of the intimacy, the amazingness of indie theaters is that, yes, maybe you don't get the amenities, the products that you would get in a big theater, but you can still get food. Like you mentioned, Allan, you can get your IP, you can get a craft beer or that brownie that you like.
The Belcourt Theater is an independent and nonprofit film house in the heart of Nashville. Stephanie Silverman, executive director of the theater, has always sought out partnerships with other local businesses and saw this as the perfect opportunity.
We had the best day ever. We got to have a tasting with all the entrepreneurs. We gave them the rules, which was it's got to fit in your hand. It's got to be not crinkly. Like, you can't package things in things that are noisy. These are the movie rules. And you've got to be able to eat it kind of neatly while you're sitting in a film. And so the entrepreneurs came up with these great different ideas for us, and this is now what we sell at the concession stand. It's been a really pretty dreamy partnership. People expect that there are goobers and popcorn, but when they come in and they see there are goobers and popcorn and empanadas and tamales, it can almost bring them to tears sometimes.
Yes, and I feel like also the some of the spots around these theaters are also like I mentioned the Coolidge Clubhouse. You want to talk about a stiff drink before a movie or four. I mean, there's this State Park outside of Kendall. State Park is just one of these it's a super hipster bar. You go there, you could kind of get your vibe on, and then walk over to Kendall Square, cinema to go watch an indie movie, half in the bag. Just like if you go to the big theaters and you go to these we used to hang out at Chatters at Showcase Cinema Revere, which was like this shitty version of a Fridays in the movie.
Inside
in theater, and
did they have Cruising USA and a pinball machine in the corner?
No, I wish. You know, and then there's Alamo Drafthouse, which we've brought up a bunch of times. It has it all in one. Alamo Drafthouse is my ideal. It's heaven. I know I said I would sleep there overnight. I would also, if anyone's listening, if I die, leave me in Alamo Drafthouse for that's my version of heaven.
Mummify Allan and just we'll get him propped up as a mummy in Alamo Drafthouse. No one will ever know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the bearded mummy.
Bearded mummy. There it is.
Of all the places to haunt for eternity, a theater, you can do a lot worse.
What is it?
Say, what is it?
Hey, white buttercup, popcorn and sweet cream butter, too hot popcorn. Mix it up, wrap it up, buttercup is born.
It's delicious.
So nutritious.
It's a taste delight.
It's so munchy.
Crunchy.
You'll enjoy each bite.
Eat butter-drenched buttercup, popcorn at its best.
Served in a king-size cup.
It beats all the rest.
One of my favorite things about indie theaters is the popcorn. The popcorn is always so good. I said earlier, like AMC and stuff, you now don't even like interact with a person. Some of them have these things and they're just like rows of popcorn and you just pick one up. Popcorn at indie theaters is always fresh and always has real butter on it. And it's so good. I can't do a movie without popcorn. Even if I am stuffed, I don't care. I need to get the smallest popcorn there is because I'm only going to eat a little bit of it. But I can't have a movie without popcorn. And having fresh, like really amazing, good popcorn with real butter is so great. Can we just go by the theater so we can get popcorn and like...
I've thought the same thing many times. If I'm walking by a theater that I know has good popcorn and there's no movie playing for me to see, I'm like, what if I just go in and get a bag of popcorn? Like, I've never actually done it, but it's crossed my mind several hundred times.
Alan's brother has done it with some, there used to be a showcase, so a big theater around here. He used to regularly go and just get popcorn.
One thing we've talked about basically this whole time, you know, in all of these discussions, the theaters represent the people who own them, the personality, their taste, the volunteers, the audience, right? That communal experience we all want. We can easily stream Evil Dead 2 on our TVs or on any device we have. We can throw on the Blu-ray if we own physical media. But no, we want to see it in the theater with other people. So popcorn's amazing. The programming's amazing. I'm willing to drive for it. But in the end, something about sitting in a group of in a theater with a group of people, like-minded people that are just all kind of there for the same thing, either to watch Princess Bride for the 100th time or watch something for the first time.
Great people who you never have to worry about at an indie theater, right? You're not like, oh, someone's going to be acting like a jerk in this theater because everyone really wants to be there and wants to watch the movie. They're there to watch for real. Have you ever had anyone other than the weird woman and her son with the hair brushing?
But that was almost part of it, though.
Yeah.
You got to tell the story.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this just one instance, Salem Cinema. It's Halloween time in Salem. We get tickets to Hocus Pocus. We're fucking pumped. We're out ahead of time as usual, eating and drinking and getting all fired up for Hocus Pocus.
The Sanderson witches are flying into town. And now everyone's in for a real treat. Winnie's the wickedest. Hello. Sarah's the sexiest.
Will thou dance with me?
And Mary's the hungriest. They're here to have some fun and practice a little witchcraft. If they could only get it right.
She did it!
Hocus Pocus.
This is an independent cinema. There are no assigned seats. There are no recliners, which protect us from people with disgusting habits. We're in it. We're rolling the dice. We paid $7 a seat because that's Cinema Salem prices. We happened to pull up behind these two people. A little odd. And I think we were so drunk that we didn't notice until Rebecca got up to go to the bathroom. So she crossed in front of me and dead in front of me. And I thought I could hear this throughout the movie. Is the woman, an older woman, and she's like furiously brushing her hair, right, in the movie theater, which is disgusting to begin with. You shouldn't be brushing your hair in a movie theater. But she's doing it like obsessively. I'm watching her now because I'm engaged. She's taking the brush and she's cleaning the hair out of the brush and throwing it on the ground in front of her. The giant clumps of hair. And I'm like,
oh, it's also this thickening sound. It's like ripping.
So now I'm staring, right? and the movie brightens and the screen shines, and she has like 17 hairs on her head. And on to the left, her partner, who she's rolling with, has long hair and a beard, and he is twirling his hair and yanking out 2 or 3 strands at a time, and also littering them. I'm assuming maybe witchcraft. I don't know. We were in Hocus Pocus. I'm gagging now on my goobers and my vodka soda, which I like. We brought in this vodka soda that was so well disguised, and like I kicked it over, and because I was like screaming and trying to get away, like before she could come back, crawling away, like just in disgust. And she's like, "Where are we going?" And I was like, "Look." And I show her, and she just takes one look at it, the yanking of the hair and the brushing, and she's like, "We need to get the fuck out of here."
It was a packed theater. There were no other seats, but that is probably the only time we've dealt with anything weird.
Oh, yeah. It added to it. It was so creepy.
Yeah,
it was so creepy.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're going to find some quirky people at indie cinemas. That's to be expected, and that's fine. The one thing, if they're probably being disruptive without meaning to be, but the guy that's on the phone talking, loudly during the opening scene to Saving Private Ryan, ruining the film for everyone.
I feel bad for the 16-year-old that's on the worker's permit, had to go into the theater afterwards and is so used to cleaning up all the popcorn, and then just came up to this clump of nastiness.
Oh, I don't think any of us here ever worked at a movie theater. But if you have, there's got to be some just horror stories of cleaning up afterwards, after a film show.
Yes, home is wonderful for most things, but when you want to relax in cool comfort and enjoy the world's finest entertainment, your best bet is this delightfully air-conditioned theater, where Hollywood's biggest stars and greatest hits will thrill and amuse you.
All right, Pete, you mentioned that you have a list of some theaters. I've got some that I frequented, but you've been able to kind of aggregate some of the indie theaters that we've kind of mentioned in our crossings on our episodes.
Yeah, I'll go through this fairly quickly because, like I said, when I started to put it together, I was just kind of Rolodexing my brain of the places that I know that I've been to, and Bernie, the places you've mentioned, and Allan and Bex that you guys have mentioned in passing as well. So we've got a pretty good list just amongst the 4 of us. And, when you extrapolate that out, I know across the country there are gems all over the place. And I think that's just the beauty of it, is just the experiences that you get to have, like going, not even just seeing the movie, but whether it's in the lobby, whether it's quirky people furiously brushing their hair, like there's nonstop entertainment to be had. So I started organizing these by states. I'll admit off the top of my list here, I started with New York because that's where I was born, but it's a pretty short list because, like I said earlier, when I was younger, I just did not have the appreciation. I was going to the main chains. So when I started to get into independent cinema, I wasn't really keeping track of where I was. I wish I could remember the name of the place in Manhattan where my cousins took me. We went to see a midnight showing of Wet Hot American Summer, run every Friday or Saturday night at this one theater. Midnight showing, like we stopped in a bodega, bought a bunch of 40s, didn't realize that they had like games and stuff before the movie. I was living in Boston at the time, and so my cousins forced me up to be like, he's on the short bus to Boston, which is a line from the movie. And so they had a game called Pin Gene on the Fridge. And so like pin the tail on the donkey, and whoever got Gene closest to the fridge was going to win a prize. And yours truly won. And my prize was a signed can of Moose by Janine Garofalo, which I had for, I'd say, roughly 20, 25 years. It finally, the signature wore off on it. At that point, it's just an old can of Moose that I threw away. But how awesome is that? That's pretty fucking cool. I don't remember the name of that theater, but getting to the list. So in New York, I've talked about this a bunch of times, the Smithtown Theater, where I grew up in Smithtown, New York. Opened in 1932, closed in 2002. It's now a performing arts center, but has the balcony, old school. They had first-run movies, second-run movies there. the Smithtown All-Weather Drive-In, where I got to see Jaws at way too early of an age. Kew Garden Cinema, which I went to recently in Brooklyn with Mark, my cousin, to see All of Us Strangers, which was an amazing experience, not the least of which is that the railroad runs underneath the movie theater. So at various points where you're watching the movie, you hear the rumble of train cars, which is just one of those unique things that you're not going to have in any other place. So it's amazing. Moving on to Massachusetts, and some of these you will already have heard. But we've got the Coolidge Corner Theater in Brookline, Kendall Square Cinema in Cambridge, the Brattle in Cambridge, the Somerville Theater in Somerville, Massachusetts, the Cabot in Beverly, Massachusetts, another great indie theater. Moving on to Illinois, Bernie's hometown, the home state, I should say, Music Box Theater, Chicago, the Vic Theater, the Patio Theater you mentioned as well. In Washington, D.C., we've got the landmark E Street Cinemas, the AFI Silver Theater in Silver Spring, Maryland, which I still consider DC. It's just outside. And then the West End Cinema, which was I had mentioned earlier, just a great little cinema that unfortunately is also no longer. And I think that's one thing we have to recognize is, for all the great indie cinemas out there, there are a lot that come and go really quickly. They last for a couple of years and disappear. I watched a YouTube video recently about this husband and wife couple that endeavored to open an art house cinema in Fort Worth, Texas, because apparently there are 50 some odd theaters in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, 9 art house theaters, but none in Fort Worth. So a couple of years ago, they decided to build their own, and they did. They opened it. It was called the Granbury Theater. It was opened in 2019, and so this video was talking to him about, he was learning as he was going, the whole how you get distribution deals, how the major chains will kind of block out films depending on the region. So the overall point is that it's a really uphill battle for these owners and, to run these indie cinemas. Like for all the Coolidges that, have some money that are able to bring in people like Bruce Campbell. There's the other really tiny places that are just struggling to get by. They get gouged on percentages of profit for screening movies. They really make up their money a lot in concessions, and it's just to stay open is really, really difficult. And I think we'd be remiss without acknowledging that, because we do enjoy, the fruits of their labor very much so. And it is a lot of labor that goes into making. Unfortunately, the Granbury Theater, after watching this 45-minute video, This Guy and His Passion, closed in 2022. So again, only lasted 3 years, but it was a bit eye-opening just what all goes into just opening one of these art house cinemas. Getting back to the list, though, Arizona, where I recently spent some time, you've got 2 Orpheum theaters, one in Phoenix, one in Flagstaff, and a little trivia about the Orpheum Theater in Flagstaff. It was opened by the Flagstaff pioneer John Weatherford, who also has a hotel that is also still standing in downtown Flagstaff. And he wanted something to occupy the lot down the street from his hotel, so he opened up a cinema in an art house. It was called the Majestic Theater back then, opened in 1911. The interesting part was that it had to close temporarily in 1915 because, as is wont to happen up in Flagstaff, Flagstaff got 5 feet of snow, and it basically collapsed the roof of the theater. So they had to close it for a period of time and then reopen it again, which is, kind of wild. Moving from Arizona, Florida is home where I live near in St. Pete, the Tampa Theater, another great indie theater, some great programming there. That's a gem, another one that opened in 1926. And then I mentioned out in Colorado, the Holiday Twin Drive-In. There's also in Fort Collins this place, The Lyric. That's just a really funky theater it's got a bar. It's got a restaurant in there. There's an outdoor part where they should, in the summertime, they'll show films outside on outdoor furniture and stuff. It's just, it's like a hodgepodge, but really cool place. Didn't see a film there, but we kind of just walked around a little bit and it looked awesome. A couple others, Carolina Theater, where I am now, in Durham, Fabulous Fox Theater in St. Louis, which I think is more performances, but John Zemsky and I went there years ago to see Charlie Chaplin film City Lights, which was accompanied by a live orchestra, and where I learned that Charlie Chaplin actually composed the music for that film. So that was just an awesome experience to get to see something like that. And then, of course, we mentioned it earlier, the Full Moon Cineplex in Nashville, quite a list of stuff that I just pulled off on the top of my head from the four of us. And you just extrapolate that out across the country. Indie cinemas, they're still doing it. There's a lot of stuff out there and there's an audience for them. And, I know we all really hope that they continue to be a viable option for people like us to go, to experience all kinds of films well into the future.
There's a few more, Pete, that I want to throw out from my many years living in Chicago. The Logan, which may be the first theater that I ever saw, like what I would consider like an indie second run place. That's where I saw Rumble in the Bronx, watching Jackie Chan, hearing mice running in the front of the aisles. This place is nasty, but this movie is amazing, and it just cost me $2 to be here, so I'm going to be here whenever I can. Pickwick Theater, that's where I saw Twister, and it's like this awesome Art Deco theater that holds 200-300 people. Again, that's where they have the Godzilla Fest or G-Fest every year. It's awesome. The Davis Theater, where I've gone to see The Massacre or Terror in the Isles, horror movie marathons. And it's literally 24 hours of horror movies. They usually play trailers or they'll have local filmmakers, and they'll throw in their movies or their shorts in between to give people enough time to, go take care of their business and just get out of their seats for 10, 15 minutes before they kick on another movie in the marathon. The Patio Theater, I mentioned kind of earlier, that's where I got my Spenguli signature, but that's where I saw an Ed Wood marathon. It was like my first experience with Ed Wood, and there's nothing like watching 6 Ed Wood movies back to back to back to back to back to make you realize there's a reason why Ed Wood is Ed Wood and why he has the recognition and notoriety that he has. Man, it was an amazing experience because I was at a theater with people that obviously loved Ed Wood and knew much more about his films than I did. It was like a warm blanket. I was in the right crowd with people that were making fun of the things that made it feel like permissible to be like, we all agree this is awful, right? And be like, yeah, but in the best of ways. So I think that, again, kind of goes back to, we've been talking about all of these, the personality, the people, great places to watch movies like this. I got to throw it back to Full Moon Cinema, Pete, where we got to see a few movies. I've seen a few there. Friday the 13th 3D, Evil Dead 2. We saw the Friday the 13th 2009 remake. We saw Tony Todd's, I believe it was his last movie, The Activated Man. Full Moon Cinema, it's a theater, but it's also a haunted house, and it's also a place where you can get piercings, and it's also a place where you can get tattoos. And it's also, in a way, like a museum of the owner, Ben and Stacy, of their collections of horror memorabilia.
It's an awesome.
I need one. I need to visit each part of that. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Bex, you would love this place.
Pete, I did find a few places I don't think that any of us have gone to, but I just thought it was worth mentioning them because they have some interesting, again, indie theaters are all about the quirky people that own them and how quirky they are. I thought you guys might appreciate some of these little quirks for these specific theaters. The Crescent Theater in Alabama, the one thing that they have, I think this is something we all loved about the Alamo Draft House. Alamo Draft House, right? Like, they basically promote the fact that, like, be quiet.
Hi, I'm Samuel L. Jackson.
Turn off your mother phone. Everyone's kind of respectful of the fact that, hey, we're all here to see the movie. Crescent Theater in Alabama, though, they lock their doors as soon as the movie starts. And I'm sure they follow all the fire codes that are out there, but they don't allow latecomers to come in. They close it so that way no one else can disturb the moviegoers that showed up on time. So it allows them to have a good time. The Flicks in Idaho, they're committed to being energy efficient, and in 2014 installed solar panels on the roof to help towards their utility efficiencies. I have to just think, that's a person who probably, it's a reflection of their personality. They're into energy efficiency, solar power, and they're running a theater that's probably paying $100 a day in electricity easily. Well, throw the solar panels up, and hopefully in sunny Idaho, that helps deflect some of the costs so that you can put it somewhere else into the theater. Last one, Real Pizza Cinerama. And yes, if you're wondering, it's 2 E's in Real. And this is in Maine. And I'll just read what they have here because I think this is awesome. The 2-screen theater plays both mainstream independent movies. They also host events like Improvision. So a little throwback to William Castle days. A comedy show where an improv group makes up dialogue and sound effects for a movie playing silently in the background. And another unique aspect of this theater, there's an intermission during each movie so guests can get up and use the bathroom or purchase more food without having to miss a part of the show.
I heard about this, the intermission.
We can definitely get there very easily. This is turning into a day trip for us.
I love that improv, making up dialogue on the screen behind you. That's
lip reading.
I think with the right group of improv people and like with the right audience, you're basically getting Mystery Science Theater, but not making fun of the movie. They're literally just replacing the dialogue, and you get the right rappy, but in the best way kind of movie. That's got to be hilarious.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Go. It's
Get your ass off the motherfucking couch.
That's right.
In your car, get on your scooter, get on someone's back and get a piggyback ride to your nearest independent cinema.
And get other people to go. Show them how awesome these places are.
Rent these theaters.
And for the love of God, leave the hairbrush at home.